Everybody, I wanted to make a little video of an example of how you can use stories in your lives as business lessons which you can share with others, because stories help build trust and establish rapport and relationships with your prospects. So I'm just going to go through a little bit of a template that we've got. The idea of this, it comes from a book called The Business of Storytelling. I've just got it here on my laptop. So every story, in order to be successful in a business sense, must have authenticity. Your stories must be true and authentic. And secondly, it must have a purpose, meaning having a clear reason why you're sharing it and how it relates in a business context, because there has to be a lesson or some reason for you actually telling the story. Now we get into the nitty gritty. The cool thing about this is everybody has stories to tell. And often people think, I don't have stories, but they just haven't really looked at their life in the right way. There are 4 types of stories. There's triumph stories, tragedy stories, transition stories, and tension stories. So a triumph story is stories of achievement where you've done something amazing in your career, or perhaps you've helped someone else achieve something amazing in their career, and there's a great story behind it. Or it might be in your personal life, but you've learned a lesson which can be applied in a business context, such as achieving your first marathon at 40 years of age. Second type of stories, these are tragedy stories. So these are about stories of regret or tragic circumstances. An example of this is losing a loved one and what it meant. Third type of story is tension stories. These are stories of conflict that are driven by your values, loyalties, and obligations. You may be torn between 2 loyalties. An example of this is having to choose between working late to meet a deadline and getting home to cook dinner for your partner. The 4th types of story is a transition story. These are about key transitions in your life, which may have been forced upon you, or they may be voluntary. So things like changing job, companies, those are business stories, but also it could be personal stories, getting divorced, going back to study, etc., etc. Just to recap, each story must have authenticity and purpose, and there are 4 types of stories: triumph stories, tragedy stories, tension stories, and transition stories. And remember, there is a template which you can get for free if you get in touch with us. So you work out what your story is, and then how do you structure your story? Well, every story has an introduction where you must quickly establish the place and time, and you must hook your audience, get their attention fast with your introduction. Then you have the middle, and this is where you name the main characters and you want to leave out any irrelevant details. You want to make it super punchy. And then you have the end. The end is made up of 2 parts. The first part is called the bridge. The bridge is where you bring your audience's attention back to the business. So if you're telling a personal story, this is the part where you relate it back to the reason why you're telling the story. E.g., you might say, I am sharing this with you because yada yada. And the last part of the story is the link. This is the final 1 to 2 sentences that connect the story back to your purpose, but without you being too direct or repetitive. It's really cool. I reckon you could come up with 100 stories. You'll be amazed of all the lessons that lie up here, but you just need these prompts to get them out. Anyway, this is the view. Pretty mint. Cheers, everybody.